Welcome to Orca Watch Live with Robin Petch.
Good evening, everyone, and again, welcome to Orca Watch Live. You might remember last night when we finished the programme, I was saying we might not have much to tell you because I think we were limited to a sighting of harbour porpoise and not much else at that point. Things have changed. More about that later, but first, thank you to our sponsors and supporters. A big shout out to NatureScot, who've supported us through the PlungeIn, the Coasts and Waters Community Fund. Very important funding for tonight and this whole week of events. Our local community, some of whom you will hear from tonight, have played a big part in this and in previous Orca Watches. So thank you to all our supporters there in the local community. Our official accommodation partners, of course, vital when we're all able to get up there, but still playing a big part this year. Lots of support from them, and we're pleased to recommend them for this year and future years of Orca Watch accommodation. And our collaborators, of course, we're going to hear shortly from Emma from the Orkney Marine Mammal Research Initiative, but all of our partners up there in Scotland, thank you for your support and collaboration on these events. And our correspondents on the ground. Lucy Baldwin, Steve Trullock have been very busy today. In fact, Steve was going to be with us, but probably isn't going to be now for reasons we will discover. Emma, as I said, will be with us shortly. And Claire Boycott-Boardman, our regional coordinator, and Karen Hall, our Shetland regional coordinator, are essential to that data gathering, of course. Okay, welcome back from that, and we'll have a little look first at the rest of this week. When I say the rest of this week, of course, that's getting shorter all the time. So tonight on Orca Watch Live, one of the main events is we hear from our sightings officer, Dr. Chiara G Bertulli. Saturday, of course, is our Orca Watch Live special. Headlined by Julia Sutherland from the University of St Andrews, we learn about the ecological consequences of orca predation on seals. And part of that show will once again be guest hosted by Dr. Peter Evans, our director. But he's not the only guest we're going to have with us on that show. We'll look at that in a moment or two. And we'll round up everything we've seen this week. What have we learned and more with the final roundup of Orca Watch Live, when we'll also look ahead to the rest of this year, and particularly to National Whale and Dolphin Watch and some of the other activities Sea Watch will be involved with. Okay, a reminder please about questions. Please do send questions in via our YouTube chat. You can obviously find that on your feed this evening. Or you can email us at orcawatchonline2021@gmail.com. And Chiara and I will answer your questions at the end of tonight's show. Now, just looking back to yesterday's programme, just very briefly, we talked a little bit about photography and answered some questions about that. And there was a question towards the end about binoculars. Well, when Peter is hosting tomorrow night's show, he will talk a little bit more about binoculars during the handover. So if you wanted more information than the very brief bit I gave you last night, tune in for Peter tomorrow as well to look at that. All of the previous programmes, including last night's, can be found on our YouTube channel, on the Sea Watch Foundation YouTube channel. So you can find links to every show that you have missed. Of course, the evening of talks is a paying event, the very first night, the Saturday night, 2.5 hours of orca goodness, only £6.50. So log on to Eventbrite for that, and you can still buy a ticket. If you've still got your link and you missed it, or you just want to watch it again because it was so good, you can still use your active link to look back at that show. Okay, we'll have a look now at our sightings news. We've, as I said, had a little bit more action than we thought. And I'm just going to make a comment first about our title slide, because of course, this might not be the very sharpest orca picture that anybody has taken. But as we said on the photography talk last night, sometimes the conditions, the distance, or the quality of your equipment conspire to make it not a magazine quality shot. But this is the first of two I'm going to share tonight. It's a very nice shot. You can clearly see it is an orca. You can clearly see there is a calf next to that orca. And thanks to Hannah Thompson, who took this photograph, we could identify that whale. The team up there in Orkney, Hugh Harrop and Karen Munro, actually used Hannah's photo to identify that that was in fact the 169 pod, and that was 170 with the calf. So as we said, fantastic memories for Hannah and a wonderful piece of citizen science. So let's have a quick look at the sightings map. I can bring the map up. This is the table that matches it. And there we can see number of sightings yesterday. Grey seals in quite a few places, harbour porpoises up there in the Shetland, orca and an otter, which Karen saw while she was watching for the killer whales in that part of the world. And then off Duncansby Head, grey seals and unidentified dolphins. So if we can go back to the sightings table, here is the detailed information about each of those sightings. KW, of course, being killer whale, HP being harbour porpoise. And there we can see the detail behind all of those sightings. Dolphin species, as seen by Leslie Hawkins there. This is one of those times when we can't be absolutely sure what species of dolphin was seen, so it's just entered as dolphin species. The killer whales, well, we can say a little bit more about those in a moment or two. So going on to this sightings table, this is the detail we had earlier. This is the site table you've just seen is the one that specifically has made the map. Here is the information as it came in. If you remember yesterday, we did only have the harbour porpoise sighting to start with. And as you see, we added quite a lot more as the day went on. Notably, at the end of the day, as if you recall, Karen was actually with us for part of the show last night. And she was there at Sunborough Head at the time. But later that evening, Simon Allen saw some whales at Ladies' Home, Scatness. Karen arrived there too, enough time to see them at the north end. So they'd moved from the south to the north end, 4 of them, including a bull. They then moved off to sea. And before she went home, she was actually lucky to see an otter as well. It's not one of the megafauna that we focus on recording, but a nice sighting nonetheless. And here is Karen's photograph of an orca taken at Scatness just last night, very late at night. Again, not the greatest photograph in some senses. Karen joked herself when she posted this that she was going to send it to the rest of the team and ask them to identify which individual that was. Don't think that's going to happen. But again, as Karen said, a really important photograph because it's evidence of the species being there. Karen, of course, we can rely on her ID, but people who are less sure, if they can get a photograph of an animal, we can really get some detail and understand that, yes, it was a killer whale, and it certainly is looking at that picture. So well done, Karen. It's also a shout out for good quality bridge cameras. As I mentioned last night, Karen doesn't use an SLR camera. She uses a bridge camera, one of the better quality ones. And because of that, it coped well with extremely low light and still got an image. Now, speaking of getting a really good image, this is Emma Neave-Webb's photograph of an orca. And we'll just have a quick chat with Emma about her sighting. Are you there, Emma?
I am indeed. Good afternoon, or good evening even.
Hi, Emma. Lovely to see you. That's a great shot you had there. I'm just a little concerned that you and your team may be losing it slightly. We've not heard from you for a little while. Go on, tell us all about it.
Well, we spent 6 hours at Hoxha Head on Sunday in the Har. We could barely see the sea most of the time. So yes, things got a little bit desperate by the end. I always take my little fluffy killer whale with me, and we decided that was the only photo we were going to get. We haven't been able to ID which individual it is yet, but I'll be sending it up to Hugh to ask him.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a plan. Joking apart,
Yeah.
Emma, I mean, we've both done this for long enough to know that sometimes this is just how it goes, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, and to be honest, it's often how it is up here in Orkney. I think a lot of people who don't live up here think that we see them all the time and there's always animals around, whether it's dolphins, porpoises, minke whale, killer whales. And sadly, that's not the case. You do have to spend a lot of time watching. And the data we've gathered this week has been very, very useful. It's a lot of negative data. We know at the moment where the animals aren't, and that's just as important. So we have to put a positive spin on it when we can.
No, I think that's a really good point to make. I mean, I know all of the enthusiasts here know exactly what you mean, but that negative data, knowing where they aren't, it might not be quite as much fun for the observer.
No.
But from a science point of view, it is just as vital as knowing where they are.
Absolutely. It's allowing us to build up a picture of patterns of where they are at certain times of year. Perhaps conditions in Orkney aren't right at the moment. We are just coming into harbour seal pupping season, but so Shetland and so's the Caithness coast. So there's a reason why they're not here at the moment, and we need to try and work out why that is.
Yeah, and if it was too easy, it just wouldn't be so much fun, would it?
I don't know. I don't think I'd get bored of watching them.
I was trying to put a positive spin on it, Emma. Come on, give me a break.
It does mean that when you see them, it makes it a lot more special. I will give you that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Well, seriously, all joking aside, I hope you get some animals to see, because negative data is all very well, but we all need a bit of positivity in our lives too, don't we? So fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. We've not had the best weather conditions for it this week, but things have calmed down. So hopefully today and tomorrow and Sunday, we'll get a few sightings for you.
Well, sneak preview, the weather is looking a bit better for tomorrow. So keep watching. Yes. The weather forecast will be on soon. Thanks for seeing us. Bye for now.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Emma. So, looking at today now, I mean, the programme is essentially about yesterday's sightings, but we do like to have a bit of a look and a bit of breaking news. So we've had quite a few sightings, which we'll look at in more detail tomorrow. As you can see, Robert, that we met earlier in the week with his super orca shots, has seen a basking shark. It's our second recording of that species this week, I think, from memory. Orca at Dunnet Head as well. Vicky this morning with Daniel Scott saw at least one orca around there. Report more on detail tomorrow. We've had sightings of minke whales today, including possibly a breaching minke whale. We were hoping to have Steve Trullock on. More about that one in a minute as well, but Steve's not going to be with us this evening. But we've got more sightings of orca and minkies during the day, as you can see there, in a number of places in Shetland, but also in Caithness. So, Caithness is a minke whale, I apologise. But we did have the earlier sighting of orca that we saw. So yeah, lots of things to report, things from the ferry as well. And then this is the breaking news, and I'm sorry I'm fluffing this very slightly at the moment, but literally just in the time while we were preparing to run the show this evening, we had a load of extra sightings added. And as you can see, more orca back in Sutherland, some at Strathy Point have been reported, more minke whales. So we've got quite a few. And this sighting from Telmeen Harbour in Sutherland was actually reported to our monitoring officer, Katrin, who we met on Monday. This couple didn't even know that we were doing Orca Watch. They're near Telmeen, and they were just looking out to sea. They saw those. They had Sea Watch's telephone number and rang our office in Wales, who got in touch with us to tell about this sighting. So lots of exciting news to look at in detail tomorrow. And these are the sightings that we're talking about. This is from this morning, the John O'Groats ferry. Christina Worth took this picture of a minke whale. You can see on the left the minke coming straight towards us. In a second picture on the right, a sort of fairly classic shot of how you see a minke halfway through its surfacing pattern. So yeah, we'll have a good look at those. We'll have a look now though at Steve's photographs. I think we have some, do we, that we can just share with people? Yeah, here we go. Now, Steve, as I say, was going to be on the show this evening to talk about this minke sighting, Steve Trullock. And here you can see on the Jog ferry today, this is the sighting just Duncansby Head in the background there. So if we can roll it on, it's just breaking the surface there. The next slide shows a really nice shot of minke quite close. You can see the little guillemot flying towards it there as well. I think that looks like a guillemot anyway, yeah. So that minke has just recently broken the surface. Its blowhole, the end of its head, is already back underwater, but you can see most of the front part of the body there and the classic minke shape dorsal fin. So we've got 2 or 3 other pictures that we can look at as well. So this is halfway through another surfacing pattern. And see how different the colour looks, I will point out as well, again, depending where the sun is shining on the body. The previous one looked almost black. This is a much paler grey. It can even look a little bit browny at times. So that's halfway through. That fin is actually about 2/3 of the way back. So it looks like it's in the middle, but it's not. And another shot. Little bit more of the front part of the back showing there. So it's surfacing again. And then the next shot, I think it is, actually shows the blowholes quite nicely. You can see at the front there, left-hand side, like old baleen whales, 2 blowholes just showing there. So its head, the end of its head has just gone underwater. Blowholes will follow very shortly, and then they will just snap tight shut. They have to actually think about breathing. All cetaceans do, otherwise they could drown too easily. So the natural position of those blowholes is tightly closed. So it's a conscious effort to open those blowholes and breathe. They can't accidentally swallow water like you can through your snorkel tube or something like that. So nice shots. Now, why isn't Steve with us? You'll be asking. I've said Steve's not with us. Why isn't Steve with us? He was all teed up to come. About 10 minutes before the show started, he got a call to say that the 27s pod of Orca, who we haven't seen yet, at least we don't think we have, we may have done, but they haven't been identified, that they were heading towards John O'Groats. And why that is even more special than you might think is that one of our very keen volunteers, James Copeland, loves to come to Orca Watch because it's his birthday week. And get this, James Copeland, our volunteer, is 27 years old today. And we teased him last year, he's been teased again this week, that if he's really lucky, one day the 27s pod will turn up on his birthday. And right now, it looks as though it's actually happening. So Steve Trullock is out there with James and others trying to make sure they can actually get that sighting. So more on that later. I just had a buzz on my phone. I'm just going to have a look. I'm not trying to take a call from a friend. No, it's not. I just wondered if it was Steve WhatsApping me to say they'd found them, but no, it isn't. So great news. Let's see if they actually do find them. Okay, let's have a quick look at the weather. I mentioned to Emma that the weather looks like it's going to be a lot better tomorrow. So the wind, remember the pale mauve colour and the very light blue is what we're really looking for. Kind of anything from 0 to less than 5 knots of wind. And as you can see, over most of the area covered by the islands, the north of Scotland, into the Hebrides, and the north side of the Moray Firth is looking very, very, very light winds. And even the rest of the area, little more than round about 10 knots. So we look like we're staying well within that force 3 or less window. Okay, let's have a look at the visibility, because we know if there's less wind, we might have poor vis. Well, we haven't got any of those nasty pinky colours. Mostly, or even around the headlands there, it's looking like 16 kilometres or better. So touch wood, we may be having some very nice conditions tomorrow. No sign, at least according to that weather map, no sign of any of that at least, except for perhaps a tiny patch there in the southern part of Orkney. We'll see. Fingers crossed for Emma and her team and everyone else out there. Finally, let's have a quick look at the swell. Again, the pale blue is what we're looking for, 0 to less than ½ a metre. Most of the area and the close area along the coast looks like it's well within that 0 to 0.5. Moderate swell, maybe 1.5 metres or so to the west side of the islands. So it's looking like a pretty decent day for tomorrow. Fingers crossed, we're going to have a good one. Okay, now I just want to do a quick reminder then about our evening of talks. I mentioned at the top of the programme that you can still watch that programme. You can click Eventbrite and buy a ticket for it if you missed it. Either because you bought it and you weren't available to watch it, or you just want to see it again, you can use the link you already have. But if you didn't buy one, £6.50 from Eventbrite. And here's a clip of Philippa Samara talking about the Icelandic Orca project and her work.
So orcas that are really specializing on feeding on herring should stay within Icelandic waters. So let's go now from this remote corner of Northeast Iceland all the way to Musa Sound in Shetland. We are now on the 31st of May of 2008, and a group of orca researchers is sitting at the local Orca Inn, and they've just ordered dinner when they get the call that there are orcas out on the water. They rush out, they don't eat their dinner, and this team is led by Andy Foote. They're really trying to understand a lot more about the orcas that occur in Shetland. And when they get to the scene, they find a group of orcas that is looking like they have just been hunting a seal. There's a lot of birds in the area. And the researchers set out to do the foundation of all orca research, which is, again, the photo ID.
Well, Philippa will be a guest on our programme on Saturday as well. We have, as I said, a guest host. I will hand over to our director, Dr. Peter Evans, for that chat. The talk will be the presentation will be led by Julia Sutherland as we look at the information around orca predation on seals. And one of her supervisors, Dr. Sana Isujuno from the university, and Philippa herself will be back with us again for Saturday. And as I mentioned, Peter will also, while we hand over, have a little chat with you all about binoculars and his particular recommendations for binoculars. So don't miss Julia's wonderful presentation tomorrow. And as always, there will be questions at the end. Okay, well, we've talked quite a lot about our local supporters that work with us up in Scotland. Sea-Watch and all the other organisations couldn't do their work without the teams of volunteers that help out. And we met last night, we saw the photograph of Claire and her team. Claire's our coordinator, that's Claire just on the right there, second from the right with the face mask on. And we met her team and they were heading to the John O'Groats ferry. And you can see in the background, it was a slightly misty day. We met them all yesterday. Well, we have a little video clip now from Ivor Thomas, who is the skipper of the John O'Groats ferry that the ladies were all heading to. So we'll share that with you now.
My name's Ivor Thomas. I work for John O'Groats Ferries, and for Orca Watch we're running some extra wildlife cruises before our normal cruises start, so that people can get the benefit of going out on a boat and possibly seeing some killer whales and other cetaceans. We're doing some extra wildlife trips this year before our season starts, which are specifically to hopefully allow them to get some extra viewing from the sea, which they may get closer to some of the cetaceans that might be seen. Well, on our wildlife trips we either go around Dunkesby Head and get a look at the seabirds and the stacks, or we go around the island of Stroma, which again there should be seals and seabirds on the cliffs. The main decision for that choice of route is dependent on the tides, which are very strong in the Pentland Firth. Our normal ferry trips are usually consist of taking holidaymakers over to Orkney, and we give them a bus tour around the major attractions on Orkney for the day, and then take them back at night time. And this year we're allowing the Orca Watchers to come on those trips just to go over and back on the ferry. And in previous years, these extra trips have been very successful in seeing killer whale sightings. In fact, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, on the very last ferry trip, we saw 2 close-up sightings of killer whales, mainly down to Steve Trulux. Well, a few years ago, we had what started off as a distant sighting of Hulk and Knot, which are 2 well-known killer whales. Had been seen around the Pentland Firth for a few weeks, and as the ferry was returning to south from Orkney to go to John O'Groats, they appeared to be getting closer, and we slowed down a bit, and then they got a bit closer, and we'd basically stopped moving, and the Hulk and Knot ended up going completely underneath the ferry while the passengers were watching them, and you could hear them breathing. That was the closest sighting I've ever had. We'd been over to Orkney and come back and got moored in, and then we saw 4 or 5 killer whales coming up from the east, and the one just nipped round the end of the pier, had a look at the steps area, and then darted off again. So he was almost in the harbour really, but that was a good one. It's about 8 or 9 years ago, but I've forgotten the actual year, but about 8 years ago there was a very close sighting when the crew came down at 8 o'clock. There were killer whales 200 feet off the harbour at John O'Groats, and they actually stayed there for about 3 hours, and there was 19 of them, and various individuals were spotted from different groups, including floppy fin, I think is that the one they call it, and they were interested in something, but we couldn't tell what it was, and some of them were just swimming around in quite close circles, but they were all, I've never seen a group of whales stay in one position for so long, like, you know. And if people want to book on the wildlife trips, they need to book online, and for the first few days we're giving 25% discount on the cruises.
Well, one of our very important partners, and really, really grateful to Ivor that he gives us spaces on the ferry. As I say, we have 2 observers working on the ferry all of the time, and as he mentioned, discounts for passengers during Orca Watch Week. And I know he's been putting extra wildlife trips on, even more than was actually planned. So big thank you to Ivor, very important. Of course, we can watch from land, but it adds a whole new dimension if you can actually get out on the water as well. Talking about getting out on the water and watching from land, I can just confirm we don't know which pod it is at this stage, but Steve Trulux does have orca right now. He has actually found them. So if we find out any more before the programme ends, we will bring you that. But otherwise, tune in tomorrow to find out which orca Steve has found. Okay, well, earlier in the week, on the Saturday, we did meet our sightings officer, Dr. Chiara Bertulli. And behind the scenes, Chiara has been working very hard, helping us answer questions, sending us information and things. But tonight, she is with us because she's been working with our schools partners. Hello, Chiara, good evening.
Hi, Robin, how are you doing?
Lovely to see you. Well, as I was just saying to people, we have met you earlier in the week, and we learned a little bit about the Sightings Network and how Orca Watch works. But I just thought it would be nice for everybody to get to meet you before you speak about the school's work you've been doing today. So can you just tell us a little bit, first of all, as Catherine did on Monday, how you came to be involved with Sea-Watch Foundation, what your background is?
All right. Well, I'm originally from Italy. I'm from Milan, to be exact, and I studied biology at university. And when I was about to decide what I want to specialize into, I came across a book, Among Whales, written by Roger Payne, just by occasionally visiting a bookstore, and I fell in love with his stories and his work. So I thought, cetaceans, I like that. At that time, I was really in love with the sea, and I loved animals. My love for animals was the reason why I decided to go for biology to begin with. So I investigated that a little bit further and eventually found a way to study marine biology. I got the okay from my parents, and I moved from Milan to another city called Ancona, where I specialized in marine biology. From there, I graduated with a project on bottlenose dolphins. And after that, I figured out that I knew cetaceans was something I was interested in, but I just wanted to figure it out exactly, just a more specific topic I wanted to dive into. So I pretty much brought myself here and there around the world. I got some paid positions as a naturalist and as a guide. My very first one was in Norway. And then as I was getting paid, I was able to sort of do a bit of field work and join other existing research projects. So I had the chance to be in Australia, New Zealand. I even went to Canada for a little while to study the minkies, etc. And all of that really was incredibly helpful, besides being a great, obviously, life experience. And eventually I ended up in Iceland, where I got a master's and a PhD degree. I started my own research projects, and which ended up being a citizen science project, very similar to what I actually currently do at Sea Watch. And I worked with minkies and white-beaked dolphins for the most part, but then I had the chance to observe many other species. I was there for almost 10 years. And at some point I decided to leave, though. I felt I wanted to challenge myself once again. And after a few years of finding jobs, doing this and doing that, but just having kind of seasonal positions, I eventually came across Sea Watch, and I had heard that they were looking for a sightings officer. I applied and I got the job. So, and that was back in 2018. So I've been with Sea Watch since.
Well, I know you did tell us a bit about this on Saturday, but I mean, let's just repeat it a little bit. Just tell people briefly what being the sightings officer means. What is that role?
Well, the title might suggest it a little bit, but I think there's a lot more to it than it really is. So obviously, being sightings officer means that I'm in charge of our network of volunteers, of our network of volunteer observers. So Peter was very great at establishing this incredibly well-working network all around the country. Well, I've been put in charge of that. So I am in communication with all our volunteers around the country. I get involved in training courses that we organize for the newcomers and any refreshers we organize for the ones that have been with us for a while. I work very closely with our network of regional coordinators and with our network of boat operators. So big round of applause to both of them, because they do an incredible job and they are really working on our behalf on site and support us with so much information that I couldn't even begin kind of mentioning. And besides that, I also get involved with our education program. Myself and Kirsten Hintner, our Dr. Dolphin manager, we both work with volunteers at Cover Education every summer. We currently have two lovely girls, Emma and Fran, and I get to work with them, and we basically find a way to get to schools and organize events, etc. And besides that, I get involved with social media. There's a good source for sightings and more. And last but not least, I'm also leading on the Nationwide Dolphin Watch Week. So I organize the event with the help of an amazing group of seasonal volunteers. This year we have a group of over 10 lovely ladies that I work with. And that's pretty much sightings officer role in a nutshell.
Yeah, quite enough there. I will just take a pause, Chiara, just to make a shout out. You mentioned Kirsten, that runs our Adopt a Dolphin program, and also helps with the education side of things. Of course, you've been in the schools today. We'll come to that in just a moment. But Kirsten will be with us on Sunday when we have the look back at Orca Watch Week, and also the look ahead to the rest of the year, and Kirsten will come and talk about that. And you mentioned Emma and Fran, who are also going to be with us on Sunday for that final roundup event to talk a bit about their work too. So yeah, we'll have them on. Now, you've hinted already, and actually somebody has asked already, I've just noticed, they're coming to Scotland later this year. Should they still report their sightings? Well, absolutely yes, because as Chiara has just indicated, we don't just do this in Orca Watch week, we do this all year round. And that's Chiara's job. Here we are, Emma Brown's question. If we were lucky enough to spot them, should we report them? Yeah, use the app. I'm glad to hear you've already got the app. Or as a lady did today, you can ring us up and tell us that you've seen some. So anything at all, yeah, we want your information all year round. Anyway, as I said, it's been a particularly busy week, lots of sightings coming in. You've hinted at it, Chiara, just again, briefly, because we could spend all night talking about this because it is so complex, as we both know. What happens when somebody sees something? First of all, what should they do? And then what happens?
Good question. And so we receive sightings of whales, dolphins, and porpoises from a number of different sources. And regardless of how people submit sightings to us, we then kind of receive the sighting, we verify them, and then once they're verified, we'd send them and include them under the observer's name into our national sightings database. Going back to the different sources that people send a sighting from, it's definitely worth mentioning that people can submit sighting to us either by giving us a phone call. Thank you, Jessica, for giving us a call today. They can either submit sighting using an online sighting submission they can find on our website, or they can use our newly launched app, the Sea Watcher app. Everything works. And then if people are interested in and have the time, the skill, the interest really, to spend a bit more time outside looking out for cetaceans, they can even either use our recording form and conduct a watch on land or at sea if they're on a boat, or they can use the app instead and conduct a dedicated watch. And at that point, they can submit sighting to us as well as some very valuable effort data. When sightings are received, what happens is that we need to understand who is submitting the sighting, and we need to verify that what has been submitted is correct. And before I go into that, I don't want to forget the power of social media. On social media, we have a great source of sightings as well. So we have a dedicated team that works and covers social media, and I'm behind that team clearly. So social media is pretty much the same thing. So we get lots of social media sightings from there too. So sightings are streaming in, we verify who's submitting everything, we find out whether we know the person or not. If the person is new to us, we just have a set of questions for that person. If the person is known to us and may have submitted a species before, we know that he has the knowledge. So we immediately confirm the sighting, add it to our national database, and obviously thank very warmly that person. If the person gets worried, we wait to hear back from that person. We have a chat, try to figure it out if we can get someplace or at least confirm what has been submitted. And if we do, and most of the time we really do, people are very collaborative, very nice, then that sighting gets entered. On social media, it changes ever so slightly because sometimes they're missing information, but then again, a message fixes everything most of the time. And the good thing about social media is that people most of the time submit their photos and videos. So sometimes that's where we get all our answers, our questions being answered. So we see the photo, we immediately identify the species. Sometimes we can even work and sort out the behavior in the group size, and here we go. We then take that sighting and enter it online, obviously copyright the person, and we go. And we get a lot of beautiful sightings in our sightings database that way.
Thank you, Chiara. As you see, everyone, there's a lot going on here, and fortunately it is not just Chiara having to do it all, because there are, as well as the volunteers we have out in the field collecting sightings, we have a lot of volunteers behind the scenes dealing with it, processing it, entering it into databases, helping to verify all of the rest of it. So a lot of work. Now, usually when we have Orca Watch, either yourself or sometimes other people too go into local schools and other things to to meet with the children and share the wonders of cetaceans with them, and hopefully recruit at a very young age some scientists of the future as well. We always hope, don't we? But we haven't been able to do this year, but you have been able to do it online. And I know while you tell us a little bit about that, we have some images from today as well. So just talk us through a little bit what's gone on today, Chiara, because you've been very busy online with the schools, I know.
Yes, it has been such a lovely day. So we knew we were not able to visit in person any local school, but we had technology on our side and we embrace it full circle. So we managed to confirm 2 meetings with 2 different group of kids from Cannes Bay and Castletown schools. And I met with them in the morning, with some of them, with the younger kids, age 5 to 9. I had prepared something for them to introduce them to who we are, to our Orca Watch week, and to what we do. And we also took the chance to create some interactive, playful slides. So we covered a few things like the way whales and dolphins sleep. We talked about the whale cetacean communicate. It was a really fun session where we played together, and the morning ended with with questions. And let me tell you that some of them are really, really sweet and nice. So that was my morning meeting with the kids. I then had a break, and then I was lucky enough to meet another set of kids, slightly older, 9 to 12. And for them, I had prepared a slightly different presentation. Them being older, I thought, okay, well, that they might find it interesting to know not only who I am and what I do as sightings officer, but learning my journey that brought me to be a marine biologist. So I prepared something very visual that guided them through, my life journey from like Italy all the way to Wales now. And it was really nice to go back to all of that myself as well and to share it with the kids. And I got, again, some lovely question at the end. People were keen to know where killer whales are sighted in Scotland. They knew about killer whales being sighted in the air because they must have heard it from like the previous group. So they wanted to know exactly where they had been sighted. Some of them wanted to know which subjects they had to take in school if they wanted to become marine biologist. And then I got a lovely, lovely question from a kid asking me which was my favorite thing as a marine biologist. So again, a lovely afternoon spent with them as well, early afternoon. And this is how I spend my day, or the most part of my day, really, talking to them, taking questions, being with them without necessarily being there, but at the same time sharing important things.
It is. There is nothing quite like working with children. And as you know, my background is actually in primary education. I finished as a primary school head teacher before I gave it up to help with the conservation work and work more with Sea Watch. And it's the one thing I miss. It's that interaction with the children. That they are so full of interest in what's going on, and they so seem to understand conservation and can't really understand why the adults have messed it up so much. But so maybe there is hope for the future. Anyway, I think we have a few images that we can share. So can we have a look at some of the images? No, we haven't got them available at the moment. So okay, so we can't actually look at them right now, but we will share those later. But we know we have got some good images and things. Do have a look at the blog tomorrow. I'll be writing a blog, and Chiara and the school things will be actually on that blog tomorrow, and we will share those images with you at a later date. So Chiara, thank you very much for all of that. We have a number of questions coming in, which we'll get to in a minute or two. But first, just a few words about the Adopt a Dolphin scheme that we've mentioned as we're talking about the children. The children, of course, are too young to be part of our membership scheme, but Sea Watch has a very long-running Adopt a Dolphin scheme. And Chiara mentioned Kirsten Hintner that runs that scheme for us. And and this is the flyer that we have for it. There are a number of Adopt a Dolphin schemes out there. So first, please just try and pick what we consider to be the right one. Actually, it's been voted the best animal adoption scheme of all by the BBC Wildlife. And the reason for that, one of the primary reasons, is that the fund was set up specifically to support our research project in Cardigan Bay. And by adopting a dolphin, you're supporting that project directly. You can see some of the membership pack there. The child adopting gets a nice fluffy dolphin, some information, fact sheets and posters about the animals, all sorts of bits and pieces, little fun sheets. And every month you will get the Newsplash magazine, or newsletter would be a better description, with not only information about all of the dolphins in the scheme, but also the other dolphins of Cardigan Bay, and all the latest news and updates, and some fun activities to do. All of that for just £3.50 a month, or of course £42 a year annually. There's a number of dolphins that you can adopt as part of this scheme. And the beauty of it is that, of course, as Katrin explained to us on Monday, we have a photo ID project, which is part of the studies being done into that population. It was actually Sea-Watch's research that led to the designation of that bay as a special area of conservation. And Sea-Watch has been tasked ever since with monitoring that population. Lots of different types of survey and study going on. But of course, because part of it is a photo ID project, we have a large catalogue of known animals, and those that are most frequently seen are the ones in the adoption programme. So there's every chance that you could go there and stand on the harbour wall, or go out on with our partners at dolphin spotting boat trips and actually see your dolphin, or you very good chance of seeing at least part of the pod your dolphin is in. And many of our adopters actually visit Newquay, can go to our headquarters and actually see all of that information about their animal and meet the team down there in Newquay. That's Newquay in Wales, of course, not Newquay in Cornwall. So please do consider that as one way of supporting us. And remember also that at the bottom of your YouTube feed, there is the link to our PayPal giving fund. Orca Watch, we've made it a free event apart from our Eventbrite talk at the beginning of the week, our evening of talks. But if you go to the seawatchfoundation.org.uk as well, all of our links to Adopt a Dolphin membership, all of that is available there, as well as all of the latest news about Orca Watch and what's going on. Okay, so Chiara, let us have a look. I have some questions here. They've been coming in through the chat. Let's have a look. The other thing I'll just mention actually is that something else that we couldn't do. We are often asked, what can we do to help? Well, the other thing that we would normally be doing up here is we would actually be taking the children out and helping do a beach clean and this kind of thing as well. But again, of course, we're not able to do that. But if you want an idea to get children involved, even if you don't have whales and dolphins right where you are, the rubbish that gets washed into the sea is carried hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of miles even sometimes. So every bit you can do, there's lots of sort of 2-minute beach clean projects, but why not take your family or some children from the school down to the beach and do a beach clean? The High Life Highland Rangers in our area are one of our partners, and I know they would be very keen to have help with doing that. So we did Emma's question already, of course. Yes, absolutely. Please, Emma, collect data all the time. And I'm glad you've downloaded the app, and keep doing so. Can you just say just a little more, Chiara? The next question here is, how do you check that a reported sighting is accurate? You've said that you do that. How exactly do you go about doing that?
So we have protocols to follow, and according to our sightings protocol, we have to first verify that we know the observer that has submitted a sighting. And after having run our sighting scheme for so long, we've built up a contact list of people that have submitted over the years. So what we do, we go back to that file, we verify whether we know the person that has submitted. We then check whether the person has submitted that particular species before. And then again, if the person hasn't submitted before, he gets queried. If he has submitted a species before, then it basically is being thanked, and the sighting gets a quick check and then is added to our online sighting database. And once we and if we have to verify the species, the sighting per se, so the species that is being reported, if that kind of verification is needed by the hand of an observer that has not submitted before, or by the hand of an observer that has submitted before but not that particular species, we have strict template with questions where we cover everything that is really important. So we go and ask about the animal size, we inquire about the coloration, we inquire about the presence, absence of the dorsal fin. We ask them to sort of tell us anything that caught their attention during the sighting. And with all these different pieces of evidence and information, we try to build up an image where we then work with to then confirm a species over another.
I can add something into that one as well, just to illustrate how important that is. If Steve had been on tonight, if Steve Trulip was going to be on, we were going to hear about how it came about that a pod of 15 Risso's dolphins turned out to be a pod of 10 kayakers, apparently earlier today. So we'll ask him that one tomorrow. So yeah, it is quite important to verify sightings, obviously. Okay. Let's both answer this one. I'll let you go first, Chiara, if you like. What is your favourite species?
Okay, this is a very sweet question. Thank you, whoever has asked this.
Thank you, Neil. This is Neil.
Thank you, Neil. That's a lovely question. So, well, people that know me really well, they probably know already what I'm going to say.
I think.
Yeah, I'm sure you do too, Robin. We've talked about this extensively. So I am a great fan of outsiders. And although I know that harbor porpoises are the ultimate outsiders, I am here referring to the minke whales. I adore the species. I think that, yes, they're the smallest of whales. Yes, they're not, sometimes in certain areas, not incredibly easy to kind of observe, to track, to record or to monitor. But I think maybe after the almost 10 years I spent in Iceland working with them, that I feel that they're definitely misunderstood. They're incredibly interesting from a behavioral point of view. They are curious wherever they can be, really. They're incredibly elegant, and because they are smaller than many other baleen whales, they're so incredibly acrobatic, and they have an incredibly complex behavioral repertoire when they feed. And every time I got to see them in the wild, I've always been left kind of speechless. So yeah, that would have to be my absolute favorite species. Yeah. How about yours, Robin?
Well, I'm going to cheat very slightly. I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is I think I'm probably with you, only because when I started as regional coordinator in Yorkshire, 20 years ago or something, I've been involved for 30 years. I can't remember exactly when I signed up with Sea-Watch. Yorkshire was a real backwater, and nobody had been the regional coordinator here for quite a few years. I ended up with 3 regions for a while before I handed Lincolnshire over. And apart from very occasional sightings of minke whales and harbour porpoises, people thought there was nothing here. And over the years, we've learned that actually there's significant involvement of minke whales in this area. And because of the work that we've done in this part of the world, we've now got a wonderful partnership with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. I've got a wonderful partnership with Whitby Coastal Cruises / Whitby Whale Watching. And we've been out on trips, and within a couple of miles of Whitby Harbour, sometimes literally within half a mile, we've seen minke whales. We've seen 20 or 30 on a 4-hour trip sometimes. So, and everything you say, Chiara, they are just so elegant. They're so underrated. They're not big and spectacular like some of the other whales. And I'm still waiting to get a good sight of it. But when I first started, everything you read and everything people told you was that minke whales never breach. Well, we all know that's no longer true. We know all over the world, including off Yorkshire, they are breaching. I've seen it distantly. I've never been close to it. So one day I hope to see that. I said I was going to cheat. Just the other thing I'm going to say very briefly is I was very fortunate while I was working on a cruise about 2 years ago around the Azores to actually go out on a whale watching trip from the Azores and be almost within touching distance of a blue whale surfacing. And to be that close to the largest living creature ever to be on our planet, and to hear it and smell it blow so close to us, and then be with it for about 20 minutes, watching it surfacing and doing its stuff. Absolutely awestruck. And I've been lucky to see blue whales a few times in different places around the world while I've been working on the ships. But to be that close was something really special. So I can't really claim it as my favorite species because I don't see it often enough to give it that. But that was just awesome, I have to say. Okay. Oh boy, we could do this one all night, Chiara, as well. Where is your favorite place to watch for whales and dolphins? This is on Gmail. I don't have a name for this one.
No worries. Well, thank you for asking this question, whoever you are out there. Well, I have been doing cetacean research for over a decade now. And I've moved from a country to another. So obviously in every country I've been, I have a favorite place. But if we were to pick a place in the UK, the place where I spend the most time is Wales. So I would have to say probably Point Linus. So we are on the Isle of Anglesey. I really love that place because it isn't too far from where I am based in North Wales myself. And because every autumn we get to go there with students from Bangor University, and we have at least a long weekend with them where we grab our binoculars, look out for animals, and we spend quality time with them, and we take our time to look out for species, and when we sight them, we take our time to understand what they're doing. And it's a really magical place, I think. It's a great place where to spot lots of beautiful birds, I have to say, as well as porpoises at their best, doing things that many people would never think they were able to do. And it's also a great place where to sight rhesus dolphins. And that's my very first place where I actually sighted them. So yeah, for me, it probably has to be my favorite place. If we were to talk about the UK, yeah.
It is my favorite one in certain senses would be off Yorkshire here because it's my home territory, and to actually see them, as I just mentioned, see them here. But for me, because of what I now do, I have to say it's from the deck of a ship, wherever that happens to be, because it is such a privilege to work as an onboard naturalist and an enrichment lecturer on the cruise ships, and to be there on the deck with passengers, some of whom have cruised for years, but had never realized they could actually see anything. And we have people who've cruised for decades in some cases, who come and stand out on the deck with Chris, my wife, and I, and we show them, even if it's only like a flying fish, and we show them their first flying fish, but especially if we can show them their first whales or dolphins. And it is such a special thing. Hugh, it was Hugh talked about standing next to someone when they lose their orca virginity the other night. Well, same kind of thing. It really is. There we go. Hugh was asked that question. Do you remember losing it? And we've so many times, just first time just for people to see wildlife on the deck of a ship. Special, really, really special. Real privilege to be able to do it. I'll leave this one to you. If you hadn't been able to work in this field, what was your plan B?
Well, surprisingly enough, I really have given a good thought to this. I spent a bit of time a few years ago just thinking about it, because I reached a point where I thought, I don't know, maybe I should just give something else a go, etc. So I think that if I was to go back and I wouldn't choose marine biology, I would probably either pick a career with languages as a translator or something similar. And that's because I studied languages in high school. And before that, I had French and English in school. And I took a lot of private classes in English as well as a kid. I always loved languages. I got English and French and German. As I finished high school, that was the three languages I could speak. And the fact that speaking a language enables you to meet people, to travel, and both things I adore, I thought, yeah, that could be one thing I could have chosen over the marine biologist career. Otherwise, being older and more mature now, if languages were not my thing, I would probably try to work in social services. I like working with people. I like to give back. So that would probably be another pick of mine,
Yeah. I mean, I as I mentioned earlier, I gave up my well-paid job as a head teacher in primary education in order to do the voluntary work for this, and I have no regrets. So I've gone the other way. I've left what was originally my dream job, my career, to create another dream job. Even if it doesn't pay, I still consider it work, great work, and something I enjoy. Can you tell us about your first sighting of an orca? I've got a story for this as well, but go on, you go first.
Well, interesting. It brings me back to a number of years ago. Surprisingly enough, it wasn't in the UK. I was in New Zealand, and I think it was between 2005 and 2006, if I'm not wrong. I was there. I had finished doing fieldwork there. I assisted at the time a PhD student who was doing conducting a research project on the actor dolphins down in Akaroa on the Southern Island. And I had finished my work with her, and I had time to sort of travel around. And I eventually found my way to what was that? Kaikoura. Yeah, that was a place. I got to Kaikoura, and my partner and I at the time booked a boat trip. And we decided to go out to see the dusky dolphins. And right at the beginning of our trip, all of a sudden, it was just quiet. And from far away, we see something approaching the vessel. And then everyone just lost it. No one was expecting the orcas to be around. And there they were. And neither was I. Obviously, I wasn't really expecting to see them. And that was my first encounter with the orcas. It was great because it was unexpected. It was great because it's the first time that you see a different species, so that's always magical. So that was it. I then later on saw them in different other countries. I saw them in Iceland many times. Actually, it's probably the country I saw the orcas the most. And then I got to see them in Scotland as well. But obviously, you'll never forget the first one, right? So.
No. I mean, I mentioned when I did my talk that I've been lucky to go to Vancouver Island and see both the northern and southern resident pods, which was special. But actually, the most exciting one, and the first UK one, we had a boat, which some people might remember. My escape plan from teaching originally was to run a project based on a boat, and we supported Friends of the Moray Firth Dolphins. And the study of bottlenose dolphins up there in the Moray Firth with our boat Dolphinicity. And we subsequently passed that on, and it became Sailing Wild, working out of Lossiemouth. So I'm sure there'll be some folks watching that have either been on that boat watching bottlenose dolphins in the Moray Firth at some point. But when we were running the boat, we used to sail it up to Scotland from Hull in the summer every year during the school summer holidays, work for a few weeks in the Moray Firth and sail all the way back again. And we had a very, very early morning leave, literally as the sun was just coming up out of Montrose. We'd spent 2 days getting down from the Moray Firth as far as Montrose. And we had to get to Holy Island. There's a very tight schedule to get into Holy Island safely. So we had to stay on track. But literally 15, 20 minutes outside of Montrose Harbour, all of a sudden, 3 orca appeared. 2 one side of the boat and 1 the other. Now, our boat was only 10 meters long, so the largest one of these 3 was almost the size of the boat, and it is quite awe-inspiring. And the funny thing is that a couple of days previously, we'd met somebody else who had a very small 17-foot boat, so what we're talking, 5.5 meters, something like that. and he was sailing single-handed around Britain with his dog, and he'd seen orca off Stonehaven in the fog. And he said that he told us that you won't believe what I've seen. You won't believe what I've seen. And he was in the fog, and he got this creepy feeling that there was something nearby. And his dog suddenly started barking, howled, and ran down below into the saloon. And he said, you wouldn't believe it, but a 6-foot tall fin just came out of the water right next to me, and I was looking up at it. And I said to him, well, yes, it's not actually that surprising. There are orca in Britain, and there certainly are on that coast. And there we were a few days later, you know, having a very, very similar experience. So, yeah, special. Okay, we've only got 2 more questions, and then we'll have to... I know we've done that one. One more question. Croc, 4x4. Does the hotspot map encourage more people to go to the hotspots to view? On the principle that for a sighting you need both a cetacean and an observer, is there a need for observers to try new places? Yeah, that's a very good point.
That's a good question. So definitely whenever we get a certain number of observations and we get a dedicated effort being spent in a certain place, according to, you know, combining the effort and the sighting data, we could then possibly refer to a certain location as a hotspot. But as we frequently kind of mention to our observers, volunteer observers, it's always good to keep on piling up information about a certain area, but it's also good not to forget any other area nearby. And the best really is that if a certain observer wants to keep on collecting an area, he shall continue to do that. But if we are able to then cover all the other areas around that particular area, that it's even better. Because what we really are aiming at is trying to figure it out how the animals are using the coastline, when the animals are present, when they're absent. We want to find out if there is a link between a specific area and a specific behavior. We're interested in particular in feeding, I'm guessing, and resting to begin with. And so the more we kind of monitor different area and we kind of stretch our work in different places, the better. Because we get that really detailed information that we want. So it's always best to, you know, carry on our work and spending effort in different locations, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to finish on, really, is that there's sort of 2 things going on here, really. If you're just keen to see animals and you also want to contribute to the research, of course, you want to head for somewhere where there's a chance of seeing them. That's common sense. We would all do the same thing. But if you want to get really involved with the science side of it, the citizen science side, sign up with your regional coordinator, sign up with our partners. I mentioned we have a project down here in Yorkshire with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. There's 2 or 3 places in Yorkshire which we know are fabulous places to go and watch, and you've got a really good chance of seeing them. But what we now have is a couple of 100 observers that Chiara and I have been involved in training down here, and they are spread out at spots all along the Yorkshire coast now. And we've spread that into Lincolnshire and up into the northeast of England. There are other observation groups like the Northeast Cetacean Project with another of our coordinators. And we have people watching in all sorts of locations. And amazingly, we have discovered that there are a lot of other places that are actually hotspots that we didn't know about until we did that. So yes, if you want to go and have a good chance of seeing something on a one-off occasion, of course, head to a good spot. But if you want to really get involved with the science and really help us understand what's going on there, please find a nice place that nobody else is watching from, and you never know what you might find. You never know. Chiara, thanks for helping out again tonight and for all of your work this week. Say, people don't know how busy everybody is behind the scenes. You're sort of slaving away there. Peter's busy with all kinds of things going on non-stop. Catherine's busy with her project down there in Newquay and has sent us a sighting today as well. So it's a big team effort here, and you're a big part of that team. So thank you, Chiara, and thank you for being with us tonight, sparing the time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, see you again another night. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And thank you to Chiara particularly, and Emma for joining us early on, of course. Don't forget, we've only got 2 days of this left. You can still see some of our older programs. Have a look on the YouTube channel, Sea Watch YouTube channel. Do tune in tomorrow for our talk, The Ecological Consequences of Orca Predation on Seals, with our guest speaker, Julia Sutherland, and the rest of the panel. And for now, as I say every evening, in the words of the two Ronnies, it's good night from me.